Imagine waking up every morning with absolute clarity, knowing exactly what you need to do and having the unshakable discipline to do it. No excuses, no delays. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the core of what we're tackling today, the battle against procrastination, that silent thief of time and potential. But here's the truth: procrastination isn't just about laziness or poor time management. It's a deeper struggle, a war against your own mind and Stoicism. It's the ancient playbook for winning that war. In this video, we're diving into 40 Stoic principles that don't just help you resist procrastination. They reshape how you approach challenges, setbacks, and even success itself. These aren't empty motivational tricks. These are battle-tested tools refined over centuries to help you take action with purpose, build unbreakable focus, and claim the life you're capable of living. Whether you're stuck in a cycle of delay or just looking to sharpen your discipline, this is your roadmap. Let's begin. The first principle might sound simple, but it's the foundation of everything. Focus only on what you control. Think about it. How much time do we waste worrying about things that aren't even in our hands? The weather, other people's opinions, traffic, the stock market, none of it responds to our demands. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it bluntly: some things are up to us and some things are not. Procrastination thrives when we blur this line. We delay tasks because we're stuck thinking about factors outside our influence, waiting for the perfect moment, the right mood, or some external approval. But here's the shift. Real power comes from directing your energy inward. Start each morning by asking, what can I actually move forward today? Maybe it's writing that first draft, hitting the gym, or having an uncomfortable conversation. Break it down. List just 3 things squarely within your control, then do them before anything else. Momentum isn't built by waiting for conditions to align. It's built by acting consistently on the things you command. Every time you choose to focus here, you starve procrastination of its favorite fuel, excuses. Here's the paradox: comfort is the enemy of progress. Seneca, the Stoic thinker who advised emperors, put it this way: we should regularly practice discomfort on purpose, not because life is cruel, but because it makes us unshakable. Think of it like a mental cold shower. When you leap out of a warm bed at 5 in the morning to exercise or dive straight into your most daunting task before checking emails, you're not punishing yourself. You're building immunity to the distractions and delays that hold you back. Procrastination is just a reflex, a flinch from discomfort. But what if you rewired that reflex? Every time you avoid a difficult task to scroll mindlessly or wait for motivation, you're trading a moment of ease for a future of regret. The Stoics knew this trick of the mind. That's why they trained in voluntary hardship, sleeping on the floor, fasting, wearing simple clothes not to suffer, but to prove to themselves that comfort wasn't their master. Apply this today. Pick one thing you've been avoiding because it feels unpleasant, maybe a tough conversation, a creative project, or a fitness goal. Now do it first. Not tomorrow, not after coffee, right now. Each time you lean into discomfort instead of running from it, you strip procrastination of its power. Resilience isn't born in ease. It's forged in the moments when you choose what's right over what's easy. Marcus Aurelius wrote one of history's most powerful reminders in his private journal. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That's not morbid, it's a wake-up call. Time isn't some distant resource you can borrow against. It's the currency of your life, and it's always being spent, whether you're investing it wisely or wasting it. The third principle is about flipping the script on procrastination by anchoring yourself in the present moment. Most delays happen because we treat time as abstract, telling ourselves we'll start someday, or when things settle down. But the Stoics knew the truth. Someday is a myth. The only moment you ever have is now. Overplanning, overthinking, waiting for the right conditions, these are just clever disguises for avoidance. The antidote: break your goals into present moment actions so small that resistance is pointless. Writing a book: don't obsess over the finished manuscript, write one sentence. Starting a business: don't get lost in 5-year plans, send one email. The paralysis of perfection disappears when you focus on what can be done in the next 5 minutes. Think of it like building a bridge. You don't stare at the other side, overwhelmed by the distance. You lay one brick, then another, and suddenly momentum carries you forward. The Stoics called this the discipline of the now, not as a motivational slogan, but as a survival tactic. Life is unpredictable. The only guarantee is that hesitation steals more dreams than failure ever will. So ask yourself this: what's one microscopic step you can take right now, not tomorrow, not after lunch, this second? Action isn't just the opposite of procrastination, it's the cure. Most people try to avoid thinking about failure, but the Stoics did the opposite. They called it Premeditatio Malorum, the deliberate practice of visualizing what could go wrong. Seneca would write letters reminding himself that fortune could take everything away in an instant. Why? Because imagining loss isn't about pessimism, it's about sharpening your urgency. Let's apply this to procrastination. Close your eyes for a moment and picture where your current delays will lead, that project you've been putting off. Imagine missing the deadline, watching someone else get the promotion you wanted, or realizing you never wrote the book that was inside you. Feel the regret as if it's already happened. This isn't fear-mongering, it's a wake-up call. The Stoics knew that our brains are wired to avoid pain more than they're wired to pursue gain, so use that. When you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it later," play the tape forward. What does later actually look like? A cluttered inbox, dwindling savings, another year of the same unfulfilling routine. Now flip it, visualize the pride of taking action today. The momentum, the respect, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you showed up when it mattered. Procrastination feeds on vague, distant consequences. But when you make the cost visceral, when you see the missed opportunities piling up, inaction becomes unbearable. That's why Seneca would rehearse adversity in his mind. He wasn't preparing to fail, he was preparing to act. So tonight, before bed, ask yourself, what's one thing I'm avoiding, and what's the real price if I never start? Sometimes the fire you need isn't motivation, it's the clear-eyed understanding of what happens when you keep hitting snooze on your own life. Ever notice how some people seem to push forward effortlessly while others get stuck in cycles of delay? The difference often isn't discipline, it's purpose. The Stoics called this eudaimonia, a life of flourishing where your actions are anchored to something deeper than fleeting desires. Epictetus put it plainly: first, tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, then do what you have to do. That's the fifth principle defining your why with such clarity that procrastination loses its grip. Here's how it works. Every task you avoid isn't just a task, it's a vote for the person you're becoming. Scroll mindlessly instead of working on your side hustle. That's a vote for distraction. Hit snooze instead of rising early to learn a skill. That's a vote for comfort over growth. But when you tie your daily actions to a vision of who you want to be, someone resilient, creative, disciplined, suddenly resistance weakens. Try this tonight. Open a journal and answer 2 questions. First, what does a flourishing life look like to me? Not society's definition, yours. Is it freedom? Mastery, contribution. Second, how does the task I've been avoiding move me closer to that vision? Maybe writing that proposal isn't just about a paycheck, it's proof you're someone who follows through. Maybe that workout isn't just about fitness, it's practice for showing up when you don't feel like it. The Stoics didn't just chase productivity, they chased alignment. When your why is rooted in your values, action stops feeling optional and starts feeling inevitable. Your future self isn't some distant idea, it's being built by the choices you make right now. So ask yourself, what's one thing you'll do today not because it's easy, but because it's who you're choosing to become? Sometimes the biggest obstacle isn't the task itself, it's the weight we attach to starting. That's where the sixth principle comes in, the 2-minute rule. At first glance, it sounds like a modern productivity hack, but dig deeper and you'll find its roots in Stoicism. Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, famously said, "If you accomplish something good with hard work, the labor passes quickly, but the good endures." In other words, the hardest part is often the first motion. Procrastination thrives on the illusion that tasks are monolithic. Writing a book, launching a business, or getting fit feels overwhelming because we see them as singular, massive undertakings. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that even the grandest achievements are just a series of small, consistent actions stacked together. Here's how to apply it. The next time you catch yourself avoiding something, commit to just 2 minutes. Open your laptop and write one paragraph, lace up your shoes and step outside. Reply to that one email you've been dodging. The magic isn't in the time, it's in the psychological shift. Once you're in motion, momentum takes over. Resistance crumbles because you've tricked your brain into action. Think of it like pushing a boulder. The initial push requires the most effort, but once it's rolling, it's easier to keep going. And if after 2 minutes you still want to stop, fine. But more often than not, you'll find yourself thinking, well, I'm already here, might as well keep going. This isn't about perfection or massive leaps. It's about proving to yourself that starting is the only barrier you needed to break. Every time you use this rule, you're training your mind to associate action with ease, not dread. So ask yourself, what's one thing you've been putting off that you could just start in the next 2 minutes? The Stoics didn't wait for motivation. They created it by moving first. Stop fighting reality. That's the essence of the 7th principle, Lama Fatih, the love of fate. Nietzsche borrowed this Stoic idea and sharpened it into a life-changing philosophy. Here's how it works. Every time you resist a task, complain about obstacles, or wish circumstances were different, you're adding layers of unnecessary suffering. But when you embrace what's in front of you, even the hard parts, you unlock a surprising kind of freedom. Picture a writer staring at a blank page, cursing their lack of inspiration. The more they resent the process, the heavier it feels. Now imagine that same writer pausing, taking a breath and saying, "This is the work, this struggle is part of the craft." Suddenly, resistance melts into focus. That's Lama Fatih in action. The Stoics didn't just tolerate setbacks, they trained themselves to see obstacles as raw material for growth. When Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, illness, and war, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about your own life." That project you've been dreading, the deadline that feels oppressive, what if you stopped seeing them as burdens and started treating them as fuel? A musician doesn't hate practicing scales. They know each repetition builds mastery. A runner doesn't curse the hill, they lean into it, knowing it makes them stronger. Procrastination thrives when we tell ourselves, "I'll start when it's easier." But here's the truth, ease isn't the prerequisite for action. Action is the path to ease. Next time you catch yourself resisting a task, try this reframe. This isn't in my way, this is the way. The obstacle isn't the enemy, your resistance to it is. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write philosophy, he wrote to himself. His journals weren't meant for publication. They were raw, unfiltered conversations with his own mind, a practice that turned reflection into his most powerful weapon against stagnation. This is the 8th principle, journaling as a daily audit of your progress, your excuses, and the patterns that hold you back. Think of it like a mirror for your habits. When you put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, you're forced to confront the gap between what you intend to do and what you actually do. Procrastination thrives in the shadows of vague intentions, but journaling shines a light on it. Start with this simple framework every night. First, identify one moment today when you hesitated. What triggered it? Was it fear of imperfection, overwhelm? Distraction, label it, then pinpoint one victory, no matter how small. Did you start that task you've been avoiding? Did you choose work over scrolling when your energy was low? Celebrate that. Finally, ask yourself, if today were a model for the next year, where would I end up? This isn't about guilt, it's about clarity. The Stoics called this attention to the self. When Marcus wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one," he wasn't lecturing an audience, he was reminding himself to close the gap between thought and action. Your journal is your accountability partner, the place where excuses lose their power because they're no longer whispered, they're written in black and white. Try this for 7 days, track your triggers like a scientist studying a pattern, and watch how awareness alone begins to dissolve the habit of delay. The page doesn't judge, it just reveals, and what you see clearly you can change. Marcus Aurelius had a habit of mentally zooming out to what he called the view from above, imagining himself looking down at Earth from the stars, watching human struggles shrink to insignificance against the vastness of time and space. The 9th principle flips procrastination on its head by asking one startling question. When you're gone, what will your delays have cost the world? Picture your life as a story already written. Will the chapters be filled with "I'll start tomorrow" or with bold action that left a mark? The Stoics weren't being morbid, they were being practical. Nothing exposes trivial distractions like viewing your life from this cosmic vantage point. That hour lost to mindless scrolling from above, it's not just 60 minutes wasted, it's a brick missing from the legacy you're building. The project you abandoned out of fear, it might have been the very thing someone needed to change their life. Here's the exercise. Take a task you've been postponing and project its impact forward 50 years. If you write that book, who might it inspire? If you launch that initiative, how many lives could it touch? Now imagine the alternate timeline where you never begin. Procrastination isn't just stealing your time, it's stealing the difference you could have made. The Stoics used this perspective not to paralyze, but to clarify. When you see your choices from this height, distractions lose their shine. Suddenly, that urgent email feels less pressing than the novel you've been postponing. The drama at work pales next to the health habits you've neglected. This isn't about guilt, it's about recalibration. The view from above strips away pettiness, leaving only what truly matters. Tonight, try this. Step outside, look at the stars, and ask, if today were my last, would I be proud of how I spent it? Then tomorrow, act accordingly. Legacy isn't built in someday. It's built in the moments when you choose work that outlives you over excuses that imprison you. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and unlike motivation, it's not fickle. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, put it bluntly, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That's the heart of the 10th principle. Motivation is a lightning strike, unpredictable, fleeting, dazzling for a moment before it vanishes. Discipline, that's the sun, rising every morning without fail, whether you feel like it or not. The Stoics didn't wait for inspiration to strike. They built systems so rigid that hesitation wasn't even an option. Think of a soldier polishing boots before dawn, or a monk chanting prayers in the cold rituals designed to fortify the will. Here's how to adapt that military-grade discipline to your daily life. Start with the rule of no exceptions. When you set a non-negotiable like writing 500 words at 6 in the morning or running 3 miles every other day, you don't debate it. You don't check the weather or your mood, you just move as if your life depends on it, because in a way it does. Procrastination preys on hesitation, so you remove the choice entirely. Next, embrace the power of the countdown. Navy SEAL use a simple trick. When faced with a task they'd rather avoid, they count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then act. No deliberation. The moment the count hits 0, your body moves. Try it today. Staring at an overflowing inbox. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Open the first email. Dreading a workout. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lace up your shoes. This isn't about thinking. It's about rewiring reflex. And finally, stack your habits like bricks. The Roman legions didn't conquer nations in a day. They marched 1 mile at a time, setting camp with methodical precision. Pair your discipline with existing routines. After brushing your teeth, meditate for 2 minutes. After your morning coffee, write your top 3 priorities. Tiny actions cemented into ritual become unbreakable. Motivation asks, do I feel like doing this? Discipline replies, it doesn't matter. That's the Stoic secret. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So build systems that leave no room for negotiation, and watch how much ground you cover when you stop waiting for the weather inside your head to change. The 11th principle flips everything you think you know about obstacles upside down. It's not just that challenges are inevitable, they're essential. Ryan Holiday modernized this ancient Stoic idea with his book's title, The Obstacle is the Way. Here's how it applies to procrastination. Every time you face resistance, that mental wall telling you to delay, you're actually being handed a golden opportunity. Not to avoid the task, but to practice virtues like courage, discipline, and resilience. Picture a sculptor staring at a block of marble. An amateur sees only the hard, unyielding surface. A master sees the statue waiting to emerge. Your procrastination is that marble. The Stoics didn't view roadblocks as annoyances to circumvent. They saw them as the very material needed to build character. When Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from his closest allies, he didn't crumble, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action, that desk covered in unpaid bills." The perfect place to practice order, that difficult conversation you've been avoiding, your chance to cultivate honesty. Even the simplest delayed chore becomes meaningful when you realize the struggle isn't keeping you from growth, it is the growth. Next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'll do this when it's easier," pause. Ask yourself, what quality could I develop by facing this now? Maybe it's patience with a tedious task or persistence with a complex problem. Suddenly, what looked like a nuisance transforms into your personal training ground. This mindset shift is revolutionary because it removes victimhood from the equation. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstances, you're the blacksmith, and every obstacle is the hammer shaping you stronger. The Roman Emperor Hadrian didn't build his wall because it was easy, he built it because the challenge would define his legacy. Your wall, that project, habit, or responsibility you're avoiding isn't in your way. It is your way. Stop trying to find the path around it and start climbing. Seneca wrote a scathing letter to his friend Lucilius about how most people squander their lives not in dramatic failures but in quiet distractions. Life is long enough, he insisted, if you know how to use it. That's the heart of the 12th principle. What you choose not to do determines what you can do. Procrastination isn't just about failing to act, it's about allowing your energy to leak out in every direction. Think of your focus like a cup of water. Every notification, every quick check of social media, every half-hearted multitasking attempt is a hole in that cup. Soon, there's nothing left for what truly matters. the Stoics practiced something modern researchers now confirm. Willpower is finite. Each decision, each micro-distraction, drains the same mental reserves you need for deep work. So here's the antidote: design a Stoic media diet. Start with a ruthless audit. Which apps, news sources, or conversations leave you energized versus empty? Which inputs align with your purpose and which exist just to fill silence? Then apply Seneca's razor. Cut anything that doesn't either nourish your mind or serve your mission. This isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. Try single tasking for just one morning. Write without music, walk without podcasts, eat without screens. You'll notice something startling. The less you fragment your attention, the more resistance melts away. Tasks that once felt daunting become manageable because your brain isn't exhausted before you begin. Marcus Aurelius guarded his inner citadel. Guard yours by letting in only what strengthens it. The modern world runs on distraction, but your power comes from what you refuse to let in. Today, delete one app that's stealing your focus. Silence one group chat that breeds anxiety. Reclaim just 10 minutes of quiet. Like a sculptor chiseling away excess marble, every input you remove reveals the masterpiece underneath, a mind built for action, not reaction. Death is the ultimate deadline, one no amount of procrastination can extend. The 13th principle, Memento Mori, isn't about morbid fixation. It's about harnessing the clearest motivator we have, the certainty that our time is limited. The Stoics didn't shy away from this truth. They kept skulls on their desks, wrote letters about the brevity of life, and began each day with the reminder, you could die today. Act accordingly. This isn't fear-mongering. It's a lens that burns away trivial distractions. Picture your calendar filled with empty squares stretching decades ahead. It's easy to say, I'll start tomorrow. Now imagine those squares shrinking to just 7. Suddenly, every unchecked box becomes a screaming priority. That's the power of Memento Mori. It collapses the illusion of endless tomorrows into the urgency of now. Try this tonight. Light a candle and write down 3 things you'd do if you knew your time was up in a week. Not bucket list fantasies, but the real, unmet obligations, the unfinished book, the unsaid apology, the investment in relationships you've neglected. See how quickly "I don't have time" transforms into "this can't wait." The Roman general Scipio kept a carved skeleton at his feasts, not to depress his guests, but to sharpen their focus. Are you spending your hours or investing them? Procrastination thrives in the fog of permanence. Memento Mori is the wind that clears it. When Steve Jobs stood before Stanford's graduating class and said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered," he wasn't being dramatic, he was channeling Stoic wisdom. Your mortality isn't a threat, it's the only guarantee that can turn someday into today. So ask yourself, what's one thing you'd stop delaying if you truly grasped how few sunrises remain? Then do it not because death is coming, but because life is here. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius had a simple question he asked himself about every task: is this necessary? That single question cuts to the core of the 14th principle, the 80-20 rule, through a Stoic lens. Most of us spend our days drowning in activity while accomplishing little that truly matters. We confuse motion with progress, mistaking answered emails for achievement and meetings for meaningful work. But here's the truth the Stoics understood 20 centuries before Pareto put it into numbers. 80% of results come from just 20% of efforts. The key is applying ruthless discernment, not just to what you do, but to why. Start by auditing your to-do list with Stoic severity. Which tasks actually align with your virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance? That report you've been perfecting for weeks, does it serve a purpose, or is it procrastination in disguise? The committee meeting you dread attending, does it move the needle or simply fill time? the Stoics weren't against work, they were against wasted effort. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." This isn't about productivity hacks, it's about aligning your limited time with what builds character and impact. Try this today. Take a blank sheet of paper and divide it into 2 columns. On the left, list every task you've done this week. On the right, mark which ones actually contributed to your growth or goals. The disparity will shock you. Then, for 1 week, practice this discipline. Before starting any activity, ask Marcus's question, is this necessary? If it doesn't make you wiser, stronger, or more useful to others, delete it. The 80% of busy work you eliminate creates space for the 20% that changes everything. Remember, the goal isn't to do more with less, it's to do only what matters with everything you've got. The modern world drowns us in trivialities. Stoicism hands us an axe to cut through them. Your life's value isn't measured by how full your calendar is, but by how few regrets it contains when you reach the end. Cato the Younger, the Stoic statesman who stood unyielding against Julius Caesar's tyranny, was famous for more than his defiance. He was legendary for his austerity. He wore simple, threadbare robes, walked barefoot through Rome's streets in all weather, and often slept on the ground by choice. Why? Because he understood a truth most of us ignore: comfort weakens resolve. The 15th principle isn't about punishment, it's about training. Just as athletes deliberately push their physical limits to grow stronger, we must practice self-denial to fortify our will against life's inevitable temptations. Think of it like a muscle. Every time you resist the pull of instant gratification, whether it's skipping dessert, leaving your phone in another room for an hour, or taking a cold shower, you're not just saying no to that one thing. You're proving to yourself that discomfort won't derail you. The Stoics called this temperance, the mastery of desires rather than being mastered by them. Start small. Pick one daily comfort, maybe the reflex to check notifications first thing in the morning or the habit of snacking when bored, and deliberately delay it. Not forever, just long enough to notice the craving rise and fall. That space between impulse and action, that's where freedom lies. Seneca fasted regularly, not because he lacked food, but to remind himself that he could thrive without excess. Marcus Aurelius feasted on simple bread and olives to avoid becoming enslaved by luxury. Today's equivalent isn't sleeping on stone floors, it's voluntarily stepping away from the dopamine hits of endless scrolling, the constant buzz of notifications, the easy escape of procrastination. Each act of refusal is a vote for self-ownership. When you practice saying no to the trivial, you build the strength to say yes to what truly matters. Not when conditions are perfect, but right now, exactly as you are. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, didn't just teach philosophy, he lived it. When his ship sank, losing everything he owned, he didn't despair. Instead, he wandered into a bookstore in Athens, discovered Socrates' teachings, and rebuilt his life with nothing but wisdom as his compass. That's the 16th principle. When hesitation strikes, ask yourself, what would the Stoic sage do, not as a theoretical exercise, but as a practical compass for action? History gives us countless models. Epictetus, born a slave, turned his suffering into strength by focusing only on what he could control. Cato the Younger faced political defeat with such unshakable integrity that even his enemies respected him. And Marcus Aurelius, he ruled an empire while war and plague ravaged Rome, yet still found time to journal reminders to himself about staying grounded. These weren't perfect beings, they were humans who chose excellence as their default setting. Here's how to bring that discipline into your daily life. First, pick one modern equivalent to their challenges. Staring at a cluttered inbox, that's your shipwreck moment. How would Zeno respond? He wouldn't complain or avoid it. He'd sort one email at a time. Facing a creative block, channel Marcus Aurelius, who wrote his meditations in military camps. Start with one imperfect sentence. The key isn't idolizing these figures, it's reverse engineering their mindset. When Seneca faced corruption in Nero's court, he didn't resign in dramatic fashion. He used his position to mitigate harm while writing letters that still guide us today. Your obstacles might not involve emperors or sinking ships, but the pattern holds. Identify the virtuous response, then act. Try this tonight before bed. Reflect on one decision you delayed today. Now imagine your favorite Stoic figure standing beside you. What's their silent counsel? No grand speeches, just the quiet nudge toward action you already know is right. A legacy isn't built in history books. It's built in the small, daily choices to act when others would wait. The sage isn't some distant ideal. They're the version of you that shows up when excuses don't. Seneca once wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius with a revolutionary idea. Sometimes the path to progress isn't adding more, but removing what holds you back. He called it the art of subtraction. While the world obsesses over productivity hacks and life hacks, the 17th principle flips the script. True power comes from cutting away the non-essential. Picture your to-do list as a garden. Most people keep planting new seeds, hoping more effort will yield better results. But the Stoic gardener knows unless you first pull the weeds choking your existing plants, no amount of new seeds will thrive. Procrastination often isn't about lacking time. It's about drowning in tasks that don't actually align with your purpose. Here's how to apply Seneca's razor. Start with a blank sheet titled "Stop Doing List." Write down every activity that feels like motion without meaning. The meetings that could be emails, the social media rabbit holes, the perfectionist tweaking of projects already good enough. Then with Stoic ruthlessness, ask of each one, if I stopped this today, would anyone notice? Would I grow? Would my core goals suffer? The answers will shock you. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by regularly stripping his schedule back to just 3 essentials: duty, service, and self-improvement. Today, try his method. Before adding any new task, perform subtraction first. That report your colleague keeps requesting, does it move the needle, or is it busy work in disguise? That extra hour spent researching instead of acting, is it preparation or paralysis in clever clothing? The Stoics knew what modern science confirms: decision fatigue is real. Every trivial choice drains the same mental energy needed for what matters. By cutting the inessential, you're not losing opportunities. You're creating space for the ones that actually align with your virtues. A sculptor doesn't add marble to create a masterpiece. They remove everything that isn't the statue. Your life works the same way. What's one thing you can subtract today to reveal the masterpiece beneath the clutter? Marcus Aurelius faced war, betrayal, and plague, yet in his darkest hours he wrote, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path. What stands in the way becomes the way forward." That's the 18th principle. Pain isn't just inevitable, it's your most honest teacher. Think about the last time you procrastinated on something important. What were you really avoiding? Not the task itself, but the discomfort it brought, the fear of failure, the strain of focus, the vulnerability of putting your work into the world. The Stoics reframed that pain as the whetstone that sharpens your edge. When a blacksmith tempers steel, he doesn't apologize for the fire. He knows it's what makes the blade unbreakable. Your struggles, they're your forge. Take the writer who dreads the blank page because the words won't come easily. Every painful sentence is strengthening their discipline. The entrepreneur grinding through rejection isn't failing, they're building calluses for resilience. Even the gym goer pushing through a final rep isn't just building muscle, they're training their mind to embrace discomfort as the price of growth. This isn't about glorifying suffering, it's about recognizing that meaningful work always carries friction. The pain of action is temporary, but the regret of inaction, that lingers. Seneca put it bluntly, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Next time you feel that resistance, pause, name it, not as a threat but as a signal. This discomfort means you're growing. The easy path leads to stagnation, the hard path leads to mastery. So ask yourself, would you rather feel the sting of effort today or the hollow ache of wondering what you could have become tomorrow? The fire you're avoiding is the very thing that will temper you into someone capable of extraordinary things. Epictetus didn't mince words when he said, "You are dying daily." Not to frighten us, but to wake us up, the 19th principle cuts through every excuse with surgical precision. There is no later. There's only the relentless ticking of a clock that doesn't pause for your perfect conditions. Think about how often we trick ourselves with someday thinking, I'll start my business when the economy improves. I'll write that book once the kids are older. I'll prioritize health after this busy season. But here's the truth the Stoics drilled into their students. Someday is a mirage. The perfect moment doesn't arrive with fanfare. It's stolen by those who refuse to wait. Picture two farmers. One waits for the ideal weather, no clouds, no wind, just the right temperature, while the other plants seeds in the rain, the wind, even the snow. Which one harvests first? Life doesn't reward those who hesitate for flawless conditions. It rewards those who work with what they have right now. The artist who sketches on napkins during lunch breaks finishes the gallery show. The entrepreneur who launches with a scrappy prototype outpaces competitors stuck in endless planning. Even Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire at war, wrote his meditations not in a quiet library, but on battlefields intense amid chaos. His secret: he didn't wait for inspiration, he created it by acting. This isn't about reckless haste, it's about recognizing that the only time you ever truly control is this very second. Try this today. Pick one thing you've been postponing and attack it in its imperfect state. Draft the proposal without all the data. Record the podcast episode with your phone mic. Have the hard conversation without rehearsed lines. Every masterpiece begins as a rough draft, every empire as a single step. The Stoics knew that urgency isn't born from desperation. It's born from the clarity that today's effort compounds into tomorrow's legacy. Your future self isn't some distant stranger. They're being shaped by what you do in the next hour. So ask yourself, if not now, when? And if not you, who? The clock is already counting down. Will you spend your ticks waiting or building? The 20th principle reveals a truth about human nature the Stoics mastered 2,000 years before modern psychology confirmed it. Willpower is a muscle that fatigues, but rituals are gears that turn automatically. Consider Marcus Aurelius again, who began each dawn with a written reminder. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. This wasn't inspiration, it was ignition. The Stoics didn't rely on fleeting motivation to conquer procrastination. They engineered daily ceremonies that made action inevitable. Picture a Roman general before battle, methodically strapping on each piece of armor. By the time his sword left its sheath, his mind was already focused, not because he willed it, but because the ritual carried him there. Your morning holds the same power. Start with stillness, just 5 minutes of silence, eyes closed, visualizing the day ahead not as a to-do list, but as a series of purposeful choices. Then review your cardinal principles like Seneca reviewing his letters. Write one sentence affirming who you want to be today. I am someone who ships creative work before noon. I am someone who tackles the hardest task first. These aren't affirmations, they're declarations of intent. Finally, prime action with a micro-win. Make your bed, do 10 push-ups, or draft the first email before breakfast. Tiny victories create momentum no motivational speech can match. The key lies in consistency, not complexity. Epictetus rose at dawn to walk barefoot on stone, not as punishment, but to condition his mind to embrace discomfort before the world demanded it. Your version might be leaving your phone in another room for the first hour or writing 3 gratitudes before checking notifications. Rituals work because they remove decision fatigue, the enemy of action. When you automate the start, the rest follows like a falling domino. Today, design one non-negotiable pre-work ceremony. Not 20 steps, not a perfect routine, just one intentional act that signals to your brain, it's time to build, not browse, create, not consume. The Stoics didn't wait for discipline to arrive. They built altars to it in their daily habits, stone by stone, until action became as natural as breathing. Seneca observed something corrosive in human nature. We measure our progress against others' highlight reels while ignoring their unseen struggles. That's the 21st principle. Comparison isn't just the thief of joy, it's the saboteur of action. Imagine 2 runners on adjacent tracks. One keeps glancing sideways, adjusting pace to match their competitor, while the other focuses solely on their own stride. Who finishes stronger? The Stoics called this the inner citadel, a mental fortress where your worth isn't dictated by external benchmarks, but by your commitment to personal excellence. Contemporary culture thrives on comparison, feeding us curated snapshots of others' success while we're knee-deep in our own messy process. A writer sees a rival's bestseller and abandons their half-finished manuscript. An entrepreneur compares their startup's early struggles to a competitor's funding announcement and questions their path. But here's what Seneca knew: every oak tree grows at its own pace, yet the forest thrives. Your journey has its own rhythm, its own necessary struggles that forge the resilience no shortcut can provide. When Marcus Aurelius faced political rivals flaunting their wealth, he wrote, "What's bad for the hive is bad for the bee." Obsessing over others' progress doesn't just distract you, it fractures your focus, draining energy better spent building your own craft. Try this reframe today. Each time you catch yourself measuring against someone else's milestones, ask 2 Stoic questions. First, what's one step I can take right now that aligns with my values? Not theirs, yours. Second, what invisible battles might they have fought to reach that point? The inner citadel isn't about isolation, it's about sovereignty. Your creativity, your growth, your definition of success deserves undivided attention. The gardener doesn't uproot seedlings because neighboring plants bloom first. They tend their soil, trust the seasons, and let time work its magic. Comparison shrinks possibilities, focus expands them. Today, build one brick higher in your citadel by celebrating a small, authentic win no one else might notice, but that proves you're staying loyal to your path. Cleans, the Stoic philosopher who carried water by night to support his studies, understood something profound. The mightiest rivers begin as tiny streams. While others waited for grand opportunities, he built his wisdom one drop at a time. That's the 22nd principle. Small wins aren't just steps toward your goals, they're the foundation of unshakable momentum. Picture a blacksmith forging a sword. He doesn't strike once and expect perfection. Each hammer blow, however slight, bends the metal closer to its ideal form. Your daily actions work the same way. The writer who commits to 1 paragraph a day finishes the book. The runner who logs single miles eventually crosses finish lines. Even Cleans, hauling his water jars under moonlight, was doing more than earning coins. He was conditioning his discipline drop by drop. Here's how to apply this ancient insight. Start with the chain method, a technique as simple as marking an X on a calendar for every day you complete a micro-action. The goal isn't the size of the action. It's the unbroken chain of proof that you can rely on yourself. Wrote 1 sentence, mark it. Meditated for 2 minutes, mark it. The power lies in the visual evidence of your consistency. Marcus Aurelius journaled not in volumes at a time, but in brief daily reflections, small wins that compounded into timeless wisdom. Modern research confirms what the Stoics practiced. Progress, no matter how minor, releases dopamine, the brain's motivation fuel. That's why celebrating micro-actions isn't childish, it's neurologically strategic. Try this today. Break your most avoided task into laughably small pieces. If you're avoiding the gym, commit to just putting on your workout shoes. If you're stalled on a project, open the document and type one word. You'll often find that once you've started, continuing feels natural. Cleans didn't become Zeno's successor overnight. He became a philosopher by valuing each humble effort as a brick in his legacy. Your chain of small wins isn't just a tactic. It's a testament to the Stoic truth that greatness isn't seized in leaps, it's claimed in whispers, one disciplined whisper at a time. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, had a radical teaching for his students when you step onto the wrestling mat. Control only your stance, not whether you win or lose. That's the 23rd principle. Success isn't measured by outcomes, but by the integrity of your effort. Think about the last time you delayed starting something. Wasn't there a whisper of fear beneath the hesitation? Fear of the report not being perfect, the presentation falling flat, the business idea failing. Procrastination often masquerades as preparation, but peel back the layers, and you'll find it's just performance anxiety in disguise. The Stoics offered an antidote, detached from results and attached to action. Not in a passive, whatever happens, happens way, but with the fierce focus of an archer concentrating entirely on drawing the bow skillfully, then releasing the arrow without clinging to where it lands. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself that even if his empire crumbled, his duty was to plant trees whose shade he might never sit under. Here's how to apply this today. Before tackling a daunting task, pause and articulate two truths. First, what's within your control, your preparation, your persistence, your willingness to learn. Second, what isn't, how others perceive your work, market conditions, even your own fluctuating energy levels. Then, and this is the Stoic shift, define success not by the outcome, but by whether you showed up fully in the process. The artist who paints for the joy of creation ends up producing better work than the one paralyzed by gallery rejections. The entrepreneur who focuses on solving problems builds more lasting value than the one obsessing over valuation metrics. This isn't about lowering standards, it's about elevating your relationship with effort itself. Try this reframe next time resistance strikes. My job isn't to guarantee results, it's to guarantee my commitment. When you unhook your self-worth from external validation, a curious thing happens. The work becomes lighter, the procrastination weaker, and ironically, the results often better. After all, rivers don't stop flowing because they can't control where the sea will take them. They move with purpose, and in that movement find their power. Ancient Roman Stoics had a peculiar morning ritual. They didn't just plan their day, they ruined it on purpose. Seneca would mentally rehearse losing his wealth. Epictetus envisioned being exiled. Marcus Aurelius pictured betrayal by allies. This wasn't pessimism, it was the ultimate antidote to procrastination's silent partner, ambiguity. The 24th principle takes their Premeditatio Malorum exercise and sharpens it into a practical tool. Here's how it works. When you catch yourself delaying, grab paper and vividly script the worst possible outcome of not acting. That project you're avoiding, write the scene where your hesitation costs the promotion, where someone else's name is on the patent, where the regret keeps you awake at 3 in the morning. Make it visceral, the sweat on your palms, the pit in your stomach when your boss mentions the missed opportunity. Why does this work? Because procrastination thrives in vague fears, like shadows that seem monstrous until you shine light on them. Modern psychology calls this defensive pessimism, but the Stoics mastered it 2,000 years ago. They knew that when you articulate the worst-case scenario, three things happen. First, you realize the consequences are rarely as catastrophic as your avoidance made them seem. Second, you uncover hidden assumptions like believing failure would be unbearable when in reality you'd adapt and move forward. Third, and most powerful, you convert abstract anxiety into concrete stakes. Try this today with one lingering task. Don't just think about the cost of delay, write the brutal details. How does inaction erode your credibility, your finances, your self-respect? Then, flip the page and write the alternate ending where you acted. Notice the gap between the two. That's where your power lies. The Stoics didn't dwell on disaster to paralyze themselves. They did it to prove that even the worst outcomes were endurable, and that the real tragedy wasn't failure but never trying at all. Your imagination is already crafting horror stories about the future. Why not direct that creativity towards scenarios that motivate instead of paralyze? The monster under the bed shrinks when you have the courage to look. Cato the Younger didn't just preach Stoic values, he engineered his entire environment to embody them. While Rome's elite indulged in lavish villas and endless banquets, Cato chose a modest home, coarse clothing, and meals so simple they became legendary. This wasn't austerity for show, it was environmental design at its most strategic. The 25th principle recognizes a truth modern science confirms. Willpower is finite, but your surroundings can either drain it or defend it. Every distraction you remove from your path isn't a restriction, it's a liberation. Think of your workspace like a Stoic study. If Marcus Aurelius were writing his meditations today, do you think he'd leave his phone buzzing next to his scrolls? Unlikely. He'd carve out a space where focus wasn't something he had to conjure. It was the default state. Start with physical boundaries. Designate one area, a desk, a corner, even a specific chair as your distraction-free zone. No devices, no clutter, just the tools for your task. This isn't about deprivation. It's about creating the conditions where your best work becomes inevitable. Next, borrow from Cato's playbook and simplify your tools. The writer who works with a basic text editor instead of a feature-packed app often produces cleaner drafts. The artist who limits their palette frequently discovers greater creativity within constraints. Even your digital environment needs this treatment. Try this. Reorganize your apps so productivity tools live on the first screen, while social media gets buried in a folder titled Later, a small but potent reminder of priorities. The Stoics knew what behavioral psychologists now prove. Every cue in your environment triggers a habit. That notification isn't just interrupting you, it's training you to crave distraction. That cluttered desk isn't just messy, it's whispering that chaos is normal. But when you design your space with intention, you're not just arranging furniture, you're programming your behavior. Tonight, take 10 minutes to audit one space where procrastination creeps in. What whispers temptation? What fuels focus? Your environment is never neutral. It's always pulling you toward or away from your purpose. The question isn't whether you have the discipline to resist distractions, it's whether you're wise enough to remove the need for heroic resistance in the first place. You know that moment when procrastination whispers, just 5 more minutes, and suddenly half the day is gone. Here's where Stoicism meets modern neuroscience with the 26th principle, the 5-second rule but with ancient teeth. Mel Robbins popularized counting backward to override hesitation, but Marcus Aurelius had already perfected the concept 2,000 years earlier when he wrote, "Command yourself." Think of it like this: every time your brain suggests delay, you have a tiny window, about 5 seconds, to act before your prefrontal cortex rationalizes the excuse. The Stoics understood this battle intimately. They knew willpower isn't some infinite reservoir, it's a split-second decision between action and surrender. Picture a soldier hearing the battle trumpet. They don't debate whether they feel ready. They move because hesitation means death. Your procrastination triggers work the same way. That email you're avoiding, the moment you think, "I'll do it later," your brain starts constructing a fortress of excuses. But here's the Stoic twist. When you physically move within those 5 seconds, stand up, open the laptop, grab the dumbbell, you disrupt the avoidance loop. Epictetus trained his students to respond to mental resistance as if it were a drill sergeant's order. No deliberation, no negotiation, just action. Try this today. The next time you catch yourself reaching for distraction, hear Marcus' voice in your head, command yourself, then count backward like a rocket launch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off into motion. It's not about motivation, it's about rewiring reflex. The Roman legions didn't conquer continents by waiting for inspiration. They moved at the command of advance. Your mind is your legion. Every 5-second victory isn't just a task checked off. It's another brick in the foundation of unshakable discipline. Procrastination doesn't lose to grand gestures. It crumbles under the relentless assault of tiny, decisive actions. Seneca stared at his own reflection and saw a chilling truth. Life is long if you know how to use it, but many arrive at old age only to realize they've wasted years preparing to live. That's the 27th principle, cutting through the greatest lie procrastination tells us, that more time is coming. Here's the brutal math. If you're 30 years old, statistically, you have about 4,000 weekends left. 40 down to 2,600, yet we say things like, "I'll start next month," as if months are infinite. The Stoics didn't just philosophize about time, they weaponized awareness of its limits. When Seneca wrote letters lamenting how people squander decades waiting for the perfect conditions, he wasn't being morbid. He was handing us a scalpel to dissect our excuses. Try this experiment. Take any task you've been postponing and calculate its true cost in lifespan currency. That certification you've been meaning to earn. At 2 hours a week, it's roughly 6 months of evenings. But here's the pivot when you frame it as, "I'm trading 6 months of leisure for a skill that could elevate my career for decades." Delay starts to feel like theft from your future self. The solution isn't anxiety, it's deadlines with teeth. The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship not to punish themselves, but to simulate the urgency mortality imposes. Modern psychology confirms what they knew: artificial deadlines boost performance by up to 40%. So here's how to apply ancient rigor. First, set a public deadline for that project you've been dawdling over. Tell a colleague, post it online, book a presentation slot. Nothing sharpens focus like social accountability. Second, borrow from Roman military strategy and break campaigns into timed sieges, writing a book. Declare you'll finish the first draft in 90 days. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations between battles, not in some peaceful retreat. Finally, end each week with a Senecan audit. Not just what did I accomplish, but what did my hesitation cost? Time's arrow only flies forward. The river you keep meaning to cross keeps rising, not with water, but with every later that drifts past like leaves on its surface. Your future isn't some distant land, it's being built with the bricks of your present choices. Stack them with intention. The Stoics practiced something radical: voluntary discomfort, not as punishment but as training. Imagine waking up one morning and purposefully wearing yesterday's clothes, skipping coffee, or eating plain oats without toppings. Sounds unnecessary. That's the 28th principle, the practice of poverty. It's not about deprivation for its own sake. It's about proving to yourself that comfort doesn't own you. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, would regularly sleep on a hard bed and live on stale bread for days. Why? To remind himself that true freedom lies in needing little, not in accumulating much. Modern life bombards us with conveniences designed to eliminate friction: delivery apps, automatic payments, climate-controlled spaces. But here's the paradox: the smoother the path, the weaker our resilience muscles become. Procrastination thrives in this cushioned existence, whispering that we can't possibly work unless conditions are perfect, unless the coffee is just right, the desk spotless, the mood aligned. Try this experiment. Declare one day a week your Stoic Poverty Day. No complaints about minor inconveniences: traffic, slow Wi-Fi, lukewarm coffee. Better yet, deliberately introduce small hardships. Take a cold shower, walk instead of drive, or work from the floor instead of your ergonomic chair. Each time you embrace discomfort without protest, you're not just saving money or time, you're depositing strength into your willpower bank. The ancient Spartans knew this well. They would purposefully underfeed their soldiers before battles, not to weaken them, but to prove that hunger couldn't break their focus. Your version might be turning off notifications for an hour or resisting the urge to snack while working. The goal isn't suffering, it's sovereignty. When you voluntarily step away from life's cushions, you discover a profound truth: the less you need to feel ready, the sooner you can begin. Luxury isn't the enemy, dependency is. And every time you choose sufficiency over surplus, you're not just saving coins, you're reclaiming your capacity to act regardless of circumstances. Today, find one comfort you can temporarily remove and watch how quickly your excuses lose their grip. The Stoics didn't avoid ease, they mastered it so it could never master them. Seneca once wrote a letter that contained just 2 words: begin now. Not begin when you're ready, not begin once you've mastered the craft, just begin. That's the 29th principle in its rawest form, the do it badly rule. Perfectionism isn't striving for excellence, it's a sophisticated mask for fear. Think about the last time you delayed starting something. Was it because you genuinely lacked time, or because you were waiting to guarantee flawless execution? The Stoics had a merciless clarity about this. Better a rough draft that exists than a masterpiece that lives only in your head. Marcus Aurelius didn't polish his meditations into literary perfection. He scrawled reminders to himself in the chaos of war camps, leaving grammatical errors and fragmented thoughts. Those imperfections didn't diminish their power, they made them human, urgent, alive. Here's how to apply this today. Next time you're frozen by the need to get it just right, set a timer for 5 minutes and commit to doing the task deliberately badly. Write the clumsiest first paragraph of your book. Record the awkward first take of your podcast. Share the prototype of your idea with glaring flaws still visible. Why? Because action, any action, breaks the paralysis of perfection. The Roman architect Vitruvius didn't wait to design the perfect temple. He laid the first stone, knowing refinement would come through iteration, not hesitation. Modern psychology backs this. The zygonic effect shows our brains cling to unfinished tasks, draining mental energy until we either complete them or abandon them. Starting poorly isn't failure, it's freeing up cognitive space for progress. Perfectionism whispers that your worth is tied to flawless results. Stoicism replies, your virtue lies in the courage to act despite uncertainty. The sculptor's chisel doesn't reveal the statue in one strike, it chips away, trusting the form will emerge. Your work is no different. Seneca practiced this by writing daily, not waiting for inspiration. His letters weren't timeless philosophy when he began. They were messy, personal, alive. So ask yourself, what's one thing you've been over-preparing to start? Now give yourself permission to do it badly, not as an excuse for laziness, but as a declaration that momentum matters more than polish. The masterpiece isn't in the first attempt, it's in the 10th, the 100th, the 1000th. But you'll never reach them if you never begin. Today, prove to yourself that done is not just better than perfect, it's the only path to getting better at all. Epictetus didn't walk his Stoic path alone. He had a mentor, Musonius Rufus, who held him accountable to the highest standards. This isn't ancient history, it's a timeless strategy. The 30th principle cuts through isolation's illusion. Progress accelerates when someone's watching. Think about the last time you set a goal in private. How quickly did excuses creep in? Now recall a promise you made to someone whose opinion mattered suddenly. Follow-through wasn't optional. The Stoics understood this leverage. When Seneca advised Lucilius, he wasn't just sharing wisdom. He was creating a feedback loop where growth wasn't solitary but communal. Your version doesn't require a philosopher king, just one person who will ask without flinching, "Did you do what you said you would?" Here's how to wield this tool. First, choose someone who respects your goals more than your comfort. Not a cheerleader who will nod when you slack, but a truth teller who will channel Epictetus' bluntness. If you want to improve, be content to appear clueless. Share specific metrics, not "work on my book," but "send you 500 new words by Friday sunset." The magic lies in the discomfort of potential embarrassment. Roman soldiers trained harder knowing their comrades relied on them. You'll draft that proposal faster if you vowed to screen share it with your accountability partner. Modern research confirms what the Stoics practiced. Simply knowing you'll report progress boosts completion rates by up to 95%. But there's a twist. True Stoic accountability isn't about punishment, it's about clarity. When Marcus Aurelius journaled, he imagined his mentor Rusticus judging his actions, not with scorn, but with relentless honesty. Is this your best effort? Find someone who can ask that question without apology. Maybe it's a colleague, a writing group, or even a stranger in an online mastermind. The key: regular check-ins where you articulate both victories and rationalizations. Epictetus praised those who welcome criticism like a physician's scalpel, painful but healing. Your accountability partner isn't there to shame you. They're the mirror reflecting the gap between your intentions and your actions. So today, reach out to one person and say, "Hold me to my word." The path to discipline isn't solitary. It's built on the quiet strength of knowing someone expects your best, even when you're tempted to settle for less. Marcus Aurelius faced an empire in chaos, rebellions, plagues, political intrigue, yet his private writings reveal a startling focus. Amidst the storm, he would isolate one daily intention. "Today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, but I will focus solely on acting justly." That ruthless singularity is the 31st principle. Conquer distraction by choosing one daily non-negotiable. Modern life baits us with endless tabs, notifications, and to-do lists, but the Stoics knew a secret: multitasking isn't efficiency, it's fragmentation of the will. Picture a Roman soldier in battle. He doesn't split his attention between multiple enemies. He picks one target, then the next. Your daily priorities demand the same focus. Start each morning like Marcus with a question sharper than any sword. What's the one thing that, if completed today, will make all else secondary? Not 10 things, not even 3. One, that report you've postponed. It's today's main objective until done. That creative project gathering dust, it claims your undivided attention for a designated hour. The magic lies in how this constraint paradoxically liberates. Writer Cal Newport calls this monk mode, a state of deep work where all else fades. The Stoics practiced it centuries earlier, understanding that divided focus invites procrastination like rotting wood invites termites. Here's the tactical shift. Track your one thing separately from other tasks. Write it on a sticky note, set it as your phone's lock screen, or voice record it as a morning pledge. When distractions arise, and they will, Epictetus' voice echoes. If you seek tranquility, do less. Not less important work, but less trivial busyness. A modern study at Stanford found that multitaskers performed worse not only in efficiency but in cognitive function. their brains literally trained to jump rather than dive. The Stoic remedy: treat your focus like a sacred fire. Guard it from the winds of distraction, and it will illuminate what truly matters. Try this today. Before checking email or social media, dedicate your first 90 minutes to that single priority. No exceptions. Like a blacksmith tempering steel, consistent heat forges strength. At day's end, reflect not on how much you crossed off, but how deeply you engaged with what counted. The Roman roads weren't built by crews laying bricks in every direction at once. They advanced mile by deliberate mile. Your ambitions deserve the same undivided respect. Choose one, start there, let everything else wait its turn. The Stoics didn't just philosophize about discipline, they engineered it with what modern psychologists now call pre-commitment. Picture Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who vowed never to wear foreign silk or indulge in lavish feasts. His oath wasn't whispered in private, it was declared before his peers, turning personal standards into public accountability. That's the 30-second principle, binding your future self to action through irreversible choices. The moment you declare, "If I don't finish this chapter by Friday, I'll donate $500 to a cause I despise," you're not just making a promise, you're stacking the deck against hesitation. Pre-commitment works because it exploits a truth the Stoics understood long before behavioral economics confirmed it. We're terrible at resisting temptation in the moment, but brilliant at setting traps for our weaker future self. Ulysses tying himself to the mast to resist the siren's song wasn't just mythology, it was the ultimate pre-commitment strategy. Your modern version might involve website blockers that won't unlock until you've logged 4 hours of deep work, or scheduling a meeting to present unfinished work weeks before it's due. The key lies in making the cost of delay more painful than the discomfort of action. Seneca took this further by writing letters detailing his moral failures, not just to reflect, but to cement his commitment to change in ink. Here's how to apply this ruthlessly. First, choose stakes that sting. A Roman soldier who deserted his post faced disgrace, not just a slap on the wrist. Your version: partner with a friend and pledge to Venmo them a meaningful sum if you miss your deadline. Better yet, designate it to a political opponent's campaign. Second, go public. The Stoics didn't meditate in secret, they debated in open forums where inconsistency meant losing respect. Post your goal on social media or commit to daily updates in a group chat. Finally, design irreversible gates. Want to run a marathon? Sign up and pay the non-refundable fee today, months before training begins. The ancient Spartans burned their ships upon arrival in enemy territory, eliminating retreat as an option. Your ship burning might be as simple as booking a non-cancelable coworking space for your project day. Pre-commitment isn't about willpower, it's about wisdom. It acknowledges that your future self will bargain, justify, and waver, so you rig the game in advance. Like a Stoic oath sworn before gods and witnesses, these constraints transform "I should" into "I must." The path of least resistance becomes the path you've deliberately paved toward your goals. Every time you bind yourself to action, you're not restricting freedom, you're forging it. Seneca watched wealthy Romans spend years preparing elaborate villas they never truly enjoyed, and he called it what it was: a sophisticated form of self-sabotage. The 33rd principle exposes perfectionism's dirty secret. It's just procrastination wearing a crown. In one of his letters, he wrote, "While we delay, life speeds by." That's the heart of ataraxia, the Stoic tranquility that comes not from flawless execution, but from the quiet confidence of knowing you've shipped your work. Picture 2 potters. One endlessly tweaks a single vase, smoothing invisible flaws, while the other fires a dozen imperfect pieces, learning from each. A year later, whose shelves hold mastery, the illusion of perfection isn't just unattainable, it's corrosive. Modern psychology reveals what the Stoics intuited. the brain registers unfinished tasks as threats, draining mental energy until they're completed or abandoned. That half-written novel isn't just gathering dust, it's an open tab in your mind's browser, slowing everything down. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait to pen perfect prose. He scribbled raw, unfiltered thoughts in his war tent, leaving us a masterpiece riddled with grammatical errors and crossed-out words. Because here's the truth, perfectionism isn't high standards, it's fear masquerading as virtue. Fear of judgment, of falling short, of realizing your best effort might still be mediocre. But the Stoics offered a liberating alternative, the completed circle. Not flawless, but whole. Imagine a Roman architect surveying a newly built bridge. Does he weep because the stones aren't identically polished? No, he tests whether it bears weight, connects banks, serves its purpose. Your work deserves the same practicality. Try this reframe today. For every task you've stalled, set a good enough deadline, then release it like a dove. That blog post, publish it with 3 typos. That business plan, share it with 2 unresolved questions. You'll discover something revolutionary. The world rarely notices imperfections you obsess over, but it always rewards courage over hesitation. Ataraxia doesn't come from eliminating flaws. It comes from outrunning the ghost of someday. The sculptor's chisel never achieves perfect symmetry, yet the statue still moves souls. Your work, shipped boldly, will do the same. The next time perfectionism whispers not yet, hear Seneca's rebuttal. You are preparing to live but aren't actually living. The bridge exists to be crossed, not admired. Cross it. The Stoics didn't glorify exhaustion, they mastered energy like generals strategizing a campaign. Principle 34 reveals a truth most productivity hacks ignore. Willpower is finite, but timing is everything. Imagine Seneca at his writing desk. He didn't grind through scrolls at all hours. He knew his mind was sharpest at dawn, so that's when he composed his letters. Modern science confirms what he practiced. Cognitive performance fluctuates by up to 20% throughout the day. Your battle against procrastination isn't just about discipline. It's about aligning tasks with your biological tides. Start with a week-long energy audit. No fancy tools, just a notepad tracking 3 things. When you feel most alert, when focus wanes, and when resistance to tasks peaks. You might discover your clarity soars between 6 and 9 in the morning, while afternoons are better for administrative work. The Stoics called this prosach self-awareness as a strategic tool. Marcus Aurelius scheduled judicial decisions in the morning when his judgment was freshest, leaving logistical tasks for lower energy periods. Your version could be drafting proposals during peak mental clarity and saving routine emails for the post-lunch slump. But here's where Stoicism elevates rest from guilt to virtue. Purposeful pauses aren't laziness, they're tactical. The Roman legions didn't march non-stop, they built fortified camps to recuperate. Your modern camp might be a 20-minute walk after 90 minutes of deep work or a scheduled power nap to reset decision fatigue. Epictetus praised students who recognized their limits. It's better to interrupt your work than to exhaust yourself. That's the subtle art of eustress, pushing just enough to grow, then recovering deliberately. Apply this today by mapping your next work week like a Stoic general. Assign creative tasks to high-energy windows and batch low cognitive chores for troughs. Treat rest as a non-negotiable garrison, screen-free, guilt-free, and as essential as action. Procrastination often isn't defiance, it's your body signaling misaligned timing. Listen closely, and you'll find your natural rhythm isn't an obstacle to productivity. It's the hidden key to unlocking it. The same sun that softens wax hardens clay. Wisdom lies in knowing which one you are at any given hour. Hierocles, a lesser-known Stoic philosopher, left us a powerful mental model, the circles of concern. Picture a series of rings radiating outward, with you at the center, then family, community, society, and finally humanity itself. Now combine this with a question that cuts through procrastination's fog. How will the choices you make today ripple through those circles, not just tomorrow, but years from now? That's the 35th principle, visualizing your future self not as some distant stranger, but as the direct recipient of your current actions. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine two versions of yourself a decade from now. The first is holding a box filled with unfinished projects, the book you never wrote, the business you never launched, the skills you never mastered. Notice the weight in their shoulders, the hesitation in their voice when someone asks, "What have you been up to?" Now shift to the second version. This one holds a different box. Inside are published manuscripts, hard-won certifications, relationships deepened through consistent effort. Their posture is different, their eyes carry quiet pride. That's the power of hierarchical circles in action. When you skip the gym today, you're not just neglecting a workout, you're robbing your future self of vitality. When you delay starting that creative project, you're not just postponing a task, you're denying your community the value your work could bring. The Stoics practiced this mental time travel daily. Marcus Aurelius would journal as if speaking to his older self, writing, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Modern psychology validates this technique. Studies show that people who vividly imagine their future selves make better long-term decisions, saving more money, prioritizing health, and resisting short-term temptations. But here's where the Stoic twist comes in. It's not just about your future happiness, it's about how your actions or inaction will echo through the lives intertwined with yours. That report you're procrastinating on, its delay might mean a colleague misses their deadline. The volunteer work you keep putting off, the community loses your contribution. Try this tonight. Take a blank sheet of paper and draw your version of hierarchical circles. In the innermost ring, write a current habit you're avoiding, say, skipping morning writing sessions. Then trace its impact outward. Next ring, how does this affect your family? Maybe missed royalties from unwritten books mean less college savings for your kids. Next circle, your community. Those unwritten essays could have inspired others. Keep expanding until you reach the outermost ring, humanity's collective wisdom, subtly diminished by your silence. Then flip it, map the positive ripple of starting today. Suddenly, that 30-minute writing session isn't just a task, it's a stone cast into a pond whose waves you'll one day swim in. Procrastination thrives when consequences feel abstract. The Stoics weaponized visualization to make them visceral. Your future self isn't waiting, they're being built brick by brick with every choice you label as later. And those circles, they're not just philosophical constructs, they're the invisible threads connecting your present to the legacy you'll leave. The next time hesitation whispers, ask it this: which version of future you deserves to exist? Then act like that's the only one who gets to. Epictetus watched his students scatter their attention like seeds on rocky soil, planting many ideas but nurturing none to harvest. His warning echoes across 2,000 years. Unfinished work doesn't just clutter your desk, it erodes your confidence. That's the heart of the 36th principle, the brutal arithmetic of half-efforts. Every project left dangling at 60% doesn't just represent incomplete work. It's a debt your psyche carries, whispering that you're someone who doesn't follow through. The Stoics called this anesis, the weakening of resolve that comes from fractured focus. Picture a blacksmith who heats 10 blades at once but never finishes forging any. The forge glows, the hammer swings, yet no sword ever leaves his shop. That's the paradox of perpetual starting. It feels productive, but it's just motion disguised as progress. Modern research confirms what Epictetus observed. The zygonic effect shows our brains cling to unfinished tasks like mental open tabs. draining cognitive resources until we either complete them or abandon them outright. Your half-written novel, that coding course paused at Module 3, the half-painted canvas in your garage, they're not just projects collecting dust. They're silent indictments of your discipline. Here's the Stoic correction: finishing is the skill, not starting, not dreaming, not planning, closing the loop. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal in scattered fragments. He filled volume after volume with completed thoughts, proving to himself that his mind could sustain focus from beginning to end. Your modern application, the rule of one: before allowing yourself to begin anything new, you must cross the finish line on your current priority, that report. It gets finalized before you so much as outline the next presentation. That home renovation project, all tools stay in the garage until the last shelf is mounted. Try this brutal audit today. List every unfinished commitment: personal, professional, creative. Now, circle just one you'll complete within the next 72 hours. Not work on a finish. Feel that resistance. That's the weight of habituated half-efforts. The moment you push through and ship something, anything, you're not just completing a task, you're rebuilding your identity as someone who sees things through. The Stoics didn't measure wisdom by ideas conceived, but by deeds completed. A single arrow fully drawn and released hits its mark, 10 arrows half pulled. They litter the ground at your feet, useless. Procrastination loves distractions, chaos. Completion breeds the quiet confidence that when you say, "I will," you do. So ask yourself this: what's one thing, just one, you can declare finished before the sun sets tomorrow? Not perfected, not celebrated, simply done. Because the road to mastery isn't paved with good intentions, it's built with finished work, one completed brick at a time. Cleans, the Stoic philosopher who carried water jars under moonlight to fund his studies, left us a secret weapon against procrastination: the no-0 days rule. Imagine him, muscles aching from manual labor, eyelids heavy from exhaustion, yet still carving out moments to study philosophy by candlelight. He didn't have the luxury of waiting for perfect conditions or boundless energy. His progress wasn't measured in giant leaps, but in the stubborn refusal to let a single day pass without moving forward, even an inch. That's the 37th principle. Consistency doesn't demand Herculean effort, it thrives on the unbroken chain of small, deliberate actions. Think of your goals like a campfire. One massive log might flare up brightly, but it burns out quickly. A handful of twigs added steadily, they keep the flames alive through the night. The writer who drafts one paragraph daily finishes the novel. The programmer who codes for 20 minutes each morning builds the app. Even cleans, hauling water for coins, was stacking wisdom drop by drop. Modern science confirms this: the compounding effect of tiny efforts outperforms sporadic bursts. A study of violinists at Berlin's elite music academy revealed that the difference between good and great wasn't innate talent, but the accumulation of daily, focused practice. No days off, no zeros. Here's how to wield this principle. First, redefine what counts as progress. A no-0 day doesn't mean finishing a chapter. It means writing one sentence. Not an hour at the gym, just 5 push-ups. The magic lies in the ritual, not the volume. Second, track your chain like a Stoic would. Mark a calendar with an X for every day you take action, no matter how small. Visual proof of consistency is a psychological game changer. Marcus Aurelius journaled daily, not in volumes, but in brief reflections that compounded into timeless wisdom. Your version might be a 3-sentence journal entry or a single math problem solved. But here's the twist: the no-0 days rule isn't just about tasks, it's about identity. Every time you choose action over avoidance, you're not just checking a box. You're reinforcing the neural pathways of someone who shows up. Procrastination shrinks in the face of daily proof that you're capable of progress. Cleans didn't become Zeno's successor by waiting for motivation. He became a philosopher by refusing to let exhaustion, poverty, or doubt dictate his daily minimum. The snowflake that starts the avalanche isn't special, it's just the one that didn't stop falling. Tonight, ask yourself, what's the smallest possible action I can take tomorrow to keep my chain unbroken? Not the grand gesture, not the flawless performance, just the undeniable proof that momentum, once started, refuses to quit. The Stoics didn't measure greatness in leaps, they measured it in footsteps. And the path to mastery is always paved with days that refuse to be zero. Seneca likened time to currency, except with a cruel twist. You're forced to spend every single coin, whether you invest it wisely or let it trickle through your fingers. Every deferred action isn't just a delay, it's a withdrawal from an account that never refills. That's the 38th principle. Before you hit snooze on a task, ask it point blank, what will this cost me? But here's the gut punch, it's rarely just hours lost. It's the slow erosion of your self-respect, the quiet accumulation of regret that weighs heavier than any deadline. Picture a Roman merchant hesitating to send his ships to sea, calculating daily losses in spoiled cargo. Now imagine your unrealized goals as that rotting cargo, your unwritten book, unlearned skill, unconquered fear, each day of delay diminishing their value and your dignity. Modern psychology confirms what Seneca knew: procrastination isn't free. The zygonic effect shows unfinished tasks leach mental energy like open apps draining a phone's battery. But the Stoics drilled deeper. It's not just cognitive load, it's the moral cost. Every time you rationalize later, you're not just rescheduling a task, you're training yourself to tolerate your own excuses. Marcus Aurelius journaled about this, warning himself that postponement is a form of self-betrayal. You're not distressed by what's happening, you're distressed by your own judgment about it. That report you're avoiding, the true expense isn't the last-minute rush to finish it, it's the subconscious message that you're someone who shrinks from responsibilities. Here's how to weaponize this principle. Grab a notebook and draw 2 columns. On the left, list tasks you've been delaying. On the right, tally their compound interest, not in dollars but in integrity. That unfiled paperwork, it's costing you peace of mind every time you remember it. The gym membership you ignore, it's not just fitness forfeited, it's proof you'll abandon commitments when discomfort whispers. The Stoics called this prosoph, the discipline of attention to life's true ledgers. Epictetus, born a slave, understood the price of inaction better than anyone. No man is free who is not master of himself. Your procrastination isn't just stealing time, it's mortgaging your sovereignty. Try this tonight. Pick one avoided task and interrogate it like a Stoic accountant. If you delay it another month, what's the interest? Shaky self-trust, missed opportunities, the dull ache of knowing you're capable of more. Seneca's letters are littered with this math. Life is long if you know how to use it. He wrote, but most people bankrupt their days on trivial defaults. The merchant's cargo rots visibly, but your unmet potential decays invisibly, until one day you wake up and realize the cost wasn't just the task undone, but the person you didn't become. So ask yourself sharply, as Seneca would, is this delay worth trading a piece of your self-respect? Then act like your answer matters, because it does. Epictetus didn't waste time admiring complex solutions. He hacked through mental clutter with one razor-sharp question. What's actually required here? That's the 39th principle in action, the first principle's reset. Picture an ancient engineer staring at a broken aqueduct. He doesn't drown in theories about water pressure or material science. He identifies the single cracked stone needing replacement. Your procrastination works the same way. That project you've stalled on isn't frozen because it's inherently difficult. It's paralyzed because you've let secondary concerns, perfection, optics, hypothetical obstacles smother the core task. Modern life bombards us with endless variables, but the Stoics practiced intellectual decluttering. When faced with delay, they'd strip the challenge down to its elemental parts, like dismantling a machine. Writing a book becomes write one sentence. Starting a business reduces to talk to one potential customer. Even fitness goals collapse into stand up and walk out the door. The magic lies in bypassing the brain's resistance to overwhelming concepts by focusing solely on the atomic unit of progress. Elon Musk uses this same strategy with SpaceX. When told rocket costs were fixed, he asked, "What are rockets made of?" Just aluminum, titanium, copper. Suddenly, reinventing space travel wasn't impossible. It was a matter of recalculating raw material costs. Here's how to weaponize simplicity today. Grab the task you've been overthinking and dissect it with 3 Stoic questions. First, what's the irreducible core of this problem? Not the presentation slides, the one key idea they need to convey. Second, what's the smallest physical action that proves progress? Not research the market, call one existing customer and ask what they need. Third, what artificial constraints have I added? Perfectionism isn't a requirement, it's a self-imposed tax on action. Marcus Aurelius practiced this ruthlessly in his campaigns. Besieging a city, don't obsess over every contingency, secure the grain supply first. Everything else follows. The moment you feel procrastination's grip, remember Epictetus' lantern. He carried it not to illuminate entire paths, but to reveal the very next step. Your version might be as simple as opening a blank document and typing a headline, or lacing your running shoes without committing to the full workout. Resistance crumbles when the ask feels trivial. Ancient architects didn't stare at mountains and despair. They carried one stone at a time until the temple stood complete. Your ambitions are no different. The bridge from hesitation to momentum isn't built in grand spans. It's laid brick by single brick, each one whispering, "This you can do." Marcus Aurelius ended his days not with exhaustion or celebration, but with inquiry, holding up a mental mirror to his actions like a physician examining a wound. That's the 40th principle, the daily review, where you dissect procrastination not with guilt but with clinical curiosity. Picture a general after battle, studying maps to understand where defenses failed. Your version happens at day's end with a notebook and 3 Stoic questions. First, what did I delay today? Not vaguely, I didn't work on my project, but precisely. I avoided drafting the introduction because I feared it wouldn't impress my colleagues. Second, what story did I tell myself to justify this? Maybe you conflated preparation with action. I needed more research, or mistook fatigue for incapacity. Third, and most crucially, what's the smallest step I'll take tomorrow to outflank this resistance? Not a grand plan, just one tactical move, like writing 3 bullet points before checking email. This isn't self-judgment, it's pattern recognition. The Stoics called it anacrasis, a disciplined autopsy of the day's choices. Modern research reveals why it works. When University of Texas students journaled about academic setbacks with this analytical lens, their GPA improved by 23% more than peers who simply vented. Marcus didn't scrawl, "I failed," in his journals. He noted, "Today I let annoyance distract me from judicial duties. Tomorrow I'll hear cases first before the crowd's noise wears me down." Specificity was his scalpel. Apply this tonight. Set a 10-minute timer and divide your page into 3 columns: delayed, rationalization, countermove. In the first, log avoided tasks without sugarcoating. The second exposes your brain's clever excuses. Notice how often "I don't have time" really means "I'm avoiding discomfort." The third is your battlefield strategy for tomorrow. Stalled on taxes, commit to opening the folder at 9 in the morning, no more, no less. The goal isn't to overhaul your life overnight. It's to identify one leverage point where slight pressure creates disproportionate momentum. Growth doesn't come from grand resolutions. It's the sum of these daily micro-adjustments. Like a sailor correcting course degree by degree, your evening review ensures you're not drifting toward regret. The Stoics knew what modern neuroscience confirms. We don't learn from experience, we learn from evaluating experience. So close this day as Marcus did, not with self-recrimination, but with the quiet confidence of someone who's turning setbacks into sharper tools. Tomorrow's victory was never about doing everything right, just one thing better than today. And that's how you build a life where procrastination isn't the enemy, but the raw material for your discipline. These 40 principles aren't just ideas, they're an operating system for action. Stoicism was never meant to be a philosophy you admire from a distance. It's a forge where discipline is hammered into daily practice. Every time you choose focus over distraction, courage over comfort, or action over delay, you're not just following ancient wisdom, you're proving it works. Epictetus put it perfectly. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That's the heart of it. Your identity isn't shaped by what you believe, but by what you consistently do. Think of these principles like a Roman legion's training manual. No soldier becomes battle-ready by reading about formations. They drill them until they're second nature. Your discipline works the same way. The writer doesn't become prolific by waiting for inspiration. They show up daily, even when the words feel like mud. The entrepreneur doesn't build resilience studying failure. They ship imperfect ideas and adapt. Every principle we've covered, from embracing discomfort to engineering your environment, boils down to one truth: progress isn't a spectator sport. Here's your final challenge. Don't try to master all 40 principles at once. That's just procrastination in disguise. Instead, pick one today. Maybe it's the 2-minute rule to crush hesitation, or the daily review to spot patterns in your delays. Whatever you choose, act on it immediately. Not tomorrow, not after you've watched one more video right now. The Stoics didn't debate virtue, they lived it brick by brick in the heat of daily life. Your turn, the tools are in your hands. The only question left is, what will you build with them? If these strategies resonated with you, join our community of action takers. Hit subscribe for more Stoic battle plans delivered straight to your inbox. But first, close this tab, pick your principle and take the first step. The path to mastery begins where videos end with